positive thing.
Welcome to ReSounding, a podcast exploring the arts in advocacy and in action. We talk with artists and activists, taking a deep dive into the causes of displacement, the strength and the vulnerability of people on the move, and the potential of the arts to shine a light on injustice and impact people's lives for the better. My name is Chris Nicholson, and this month I spoke to Alaa Abdulfatah, chairman of Kulturvan, a new cultural centre set up in Amude on the northern border of Syria. She spoke to us about returning to Syria after a decade of conflict to bring art, culture and creative alternatives to her hometown. It'd be really helpful for people to be able to picture where you're working, to be able to picture Amudha, because I think that's one of the hardest things for people to picture a place in Syria, because people have their image of what they've seen in the news for the past 10 years is what they picture.
Yeah, it's very great to start with Amuda because it's in our motivation. It's the place and the feeling and actually also the memories we have about Amuda made us make this project. Mm-hmm. And Amuda is a really small city. It's located in the northeast of Syria, a very cultural city. It's none in Syria and between the four parts of Kurdistan, like a small city with a lot of creativity, a lot of artists, poetry, and a lot of crazy people too. Because I really like that. They make a lot of jokes about the city because they say Amuda is just a big place for crazy people. It's also known like in years 50 years 1950s. It was the second cultural city of Kurdish people after Suleimania. Suleimania is one of the two biggest cities in Kurdistan of Iraq. And you can imagine that they had in 1960 three cinemas for a very small city, almost 20,000 inhabitants. That's really small. And then three cinemas, a lot of artists, a lot of writers. We have a lot of names, and it was the place to express yourself, to find art, to get in touch with different kind of cultures, because the city has also a lot of ethnical differences. Like you have a Kurd, and you have some Arabic people, and you have Christian, and you have Yazidis, and but nobody ever took care of where are you from or what kind of ethnical background you had. So people used to live in peace, and everything connect them was really art. But that changed in 1960 when Amuda affected by a big fire in the cinema. We lost more than 200 children in the age of between 8 and 12 years. They were in a movie about the Algerian Revolution, and they could go to the cinema and contribute by paying the price of the ticket, supporting the revolution in Algeria. But it became a big dramatic tragedy for the people in Amuda because it was a huge fire. They lost a lot of people, and it became a kind of, tragedy. People didn't like to go to the cinema. Cinema was just associated by death and by fire. And from that time, all the cinemas from 1960, all the cinema closed. I know from my experience when I went to Damascus to study, and I told my mother once by phone, I was yesterday on the cinema. So she get very nervous and shouting, "You are not allowed to go to the cinema because you are going to die." I know my uncle was on that fire, so he was always telling us. And I was just a little girl, so I was listening to his story, and I had an image about the fire and how people were burning and how children were crying. And I know when I grown up and I get all the chances and possibility to develop in the Western free country like the Netherlands, I said, if ever I would do something to Amuda, my place of birth, it will be bringing back the relationship of Amuda with cinema, because that's really a very, very dark history in the city, and a very tragic experience for the people there. There's no family left without losing somebody, one or more, in that fire, and it became a very dark point.
Yeah.
So that you can say it's a very remarkable moment of the history of the city of Amuda, being such an important place for art and culture. Yeah, well, it's for me, this is really a very important point, a memory about my city. And we want to change that image. We want to bring some hope, to bring the relationship back.
Yeah. So Amuda, as a place, obviously inspired you a lot as a young person. To be surrounded by all that culture is clearly very formative for you. To be surrounded by the poetry and the music and the cinema, all of these aspects, art, that clearly formed a lot of who you are, I think, listening to you speak. To have all of that influence at the same time of different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds. It sounds like that's something that you carry with you, that memory of culture.
Yes, I guess it is like that, because when I came also to the Netherlands, I didn't feel that strange, I mean, maybe you have been in Amsterdam and you know how multicultural is the Netherlands. In such a small area. You have a very different kind of nationalities, and I guess Netherlands is also a very rich cultural place. So I guess that made it easier for me to feel home also in the Netherlands, because of the influences of the place in Amuda.
And then you talk about, of course, the one tragic event at the cinema in 1960. I think you moved back to Amuda last year. Is that correct? In 2021?
True.
And in the years between moving away and moving back, of course, there'd also been the tragedy of war that affected Amuda and Syria also. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes that you saw in Amuda when you moved back in 2021, as opposed to the image you've drawn of when you were growing up?
Well, before 2021, I went also in 2018 and 2013. So I saw slightly the changes in Amuda. But last time when I was been there, I just felt like it will become a kind of ghost city. It's not the city where we had a lot of cultural influences. A lot of people fled the place as refugees to other places, and it's really a very big change. Like, we have nothing in Amuda to contribute, like a artistic place, or people where they were there that are gone. The place is a kind of very affected, of stressed by the war, and even it's somehow not directly affected by war, like for example Aleppo or Raqqa. But you feel the stress, and that's especially because we know how it was before and how it is now. So it feels for us like, oh, what's going on here? How we could bring back the relationship of Amuda with that free-minded soul, with the sense of creativity, with the love for art. Those things were really for us kind of very far memory, and it affected us so much, because the first thing we saw, and that was an image I will never forget. It's the children on the street. It was horrible. When I was a child, we were making competition by writing a poem or drawing a picture, or making a music with no instruments, with our hands, or just making art. That was the competition between us, and the game of children, how to be the best, how to express yourself in in an artistic way, because it was also very connected to your status, kind of how more you read and how more you create, how better you are in the city. It's really something very specific of Amuda. There are a lot of competition, intellectual competition, artistic, and in a very beautiful way. I mean, it's not war, but it's a very smooth way. It's triggering people to give the best of them. But those things really changed with the war in Syria, because children were playing war. I mean, I was just on the street and I see children holding guns, and they're playing ISIS, and I am a Kurdish fighter, and I'm a Syrian government, and we get in shock. We say, this is just unbelievable, and everything around is stimulating that game, and it became bigger and bigger, and there's no alternative, and that's the problem. There is no alternative. Like if you go to a toy store for children, you just see guns, plastic guns.
Wow.
And that affected us emotionally very much, and we said we can't just keep looking to these things. If we really want to change something, we should try to give alternatives. And what's the alternative for us is our memory about Amuda and art is the alternative, because this is what we hold with us the time we left the country, and this is what's still in us. And we want to give back to our city and our people, because really the new generation, the children, are the hope. We don't want them to go at that wrong, dark place of war. And the only way is to give them some alternative, to let them test and see and make art.
Mm-hmm. Alaa, when you spoke to R27 on Women's Day on the 8th of March, and I was struck by the image that you're talking about. You shared a photograph then of 3 children in the street with toy guns playing. And it really struck me. That's the image that stays with me from that event, because it made me aware, because in my mind I thought, okay, if people have been exposed to war, the response would be to move away from war. The response would be, that's enough war, that's enough violence. Like a hatred of war and violence would be the response. But in fact, it's not, is it? This infiltrates, there's a shift in the mindset, it seems like. Can you explain to me, because this is quite a very interesting and important thing to me, and I think everyone to understand well.
It's true, Chris. It's not. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Like they are enough of the war. No, war bring more war. We are all affected by our environment. If you go to an environment which there's art and stimulants and beautiful things, or just look to yourself, or I look to myself, where I go to the nature, I feel peace. But when I go to a crowded place, a place with violence, I just get some kind of bad feelings with me. So we are a result of our environment, and you can't expect from the children, which they are made in a war, if they want to buy something, a toy from a store, or if they get a present from their family or from friends for their birthday, they get guns. So this is the way how it works, I guess. And if we really want to change that, you should give alternatives. They should see and feel and get different kind of things. I believe we should give more alternatives. We should make less focus on the war in those areas, especially for the children, and make them have some hope, some space, be free to see beautiful things. And if you don't offer them that place and those beautiful things, they will just see what they see on the street or what they hear in the news, and it's all actually bad things.
And when you're working with children, as a father myself, I can imagine there's a point where kind of play is a bit like play and a bit detached from an understanding, and then an age where understanding changes in children, of course, of quite what's going on and what the game is. And when you're working with the children, do you see that for some a certain age the alternative becomes easier to accept. How do you find children moving from what you've described into the cultural space of Kotelvan?
I think one word is very important in that process, Chris, and it's about revenge. And I mean, when I say revenge, the children become, when they slightly understand that this war affected them negatively, they don't think I will change that with the positive things, because they don't see a lot of positive things and they didn't experience a lot of positive things around. So they think the way I'm going to give back what I get, and that's revenge. So, and that's the explanation why they hold guns and they are not holding guitars, for example, or making music or making films or holding cameras. And I think we should be very early in that process. How younger they are, how better. Because, and that's why we always say the children are really our hope. They are the generation we want to get ready for the future, to give some beauties, to give some values of loving each other, of caring of each other, or also forgiving each other. Because that's the only way. I mean, you can't change the situation by more hate and more violence and more guns and more talking about it. And that's the mood there. You see, if you talk to parents, a lot of parents, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people, we should have revenge. This is your country. This is, and those kind of slogans, and it destroy the country on the long term. And actually not even on the long term, it's destroying it now.
Yeah.
So answering your question, how younger they are, how more beauties you show them, how more alternatives you give them, how bigger the chance is they get over it and they change the focus. And that's what we really want to do. We are so trying to do that. That's our passion, our goal.
So let's talk about the wonderful work you're doing with Kotelvan. As I've listened to you speak in other places and read about your work, you began a centre in 2021, which has room for cinema, for music teaching, for lectures, for poetry, for food, for great food, healthy food, and you've renovated a building which was kind of broken down into a beautiful, welcoming space. Can you tell us about that story and about what Kotelvan has become?
Well, my co-founder, Gernas, also my husband, he told the place is asking to be something. It was really, we didn't make that plan. We went there, we saw the picture of the children, we get shocked in the beginning. We had really a lot of kind of sorry, a deep sorry. It's more than sorry. And we decided to do something. We get once a key of that building. It's really a very old, destroyed building. Nobody was living there. And Gernas is playing duff. This is a very, I don't know if you know the duff.
Yeah, the frame drum. The frame drum with something inside even. There's a sound, isn't there?
Exactly, that one. He wanted to practice there, and the moment he was playing there, he told me, "It's the place is asking to be something." So we spoken about that, and he said, "The place is asking to be a place for everybody to come here and to discover himself and to get alternatives." So I say, "Okay, what do you think about that?" Say, "I'm going to rebuild it." And that's how it became a kind of cultural center. We a place for all. We call it, everybody is welcome here. You are welcome for free to come here, to sit, to read a book, because we have a library, to have some healthy food, and you can eat and you can have a very beautiful, healthy meal of it. Let's create a place where people can meet, just talk about things. And I hope not about politics, because it's something which dividing us, we guess, we believe, or both of us. Let's talk about a good movie. Let's talk about the music. Let them listen music. Let them also listen Western music, because the connections for us between East and West is really very important, especially in us. Both of us lived the half of our life in Western country and holding a lot of memories and a lot of experiences from an Eastern country, Amudha in this case. Kulturvan is actually a building with a cinema hall. And this is the first cinema hall from 1960.
Wow.
So we are really so proud of it. The children in Amuda never been in a cinema before. It became very emotional the first day we screened the movie, and we get children in our place, or in the place of Amuda. It's not our place. And they say, I told them, do you know what is this? They say, we don't know. It's a big television. But it's not a television. They went touching the screen. Yeah. It's not a television, because it was such actually a very special moment in the meaning of emotionally. But it was also funny because we have children, and we know our children went to the movie when they were 3 or 4. So it's not that strange thing for them, but for the children in Amuda, it was, whoa, what's this? Such a big, where it's coming from, and all those kind of questions. Yeah, that's the cinema is one part of the things, and we have a really good, big ambition to make a film festival to tell the story of Amuda with the cinema, to bring films, to bring actors. It needs some work. We have a music, Gernas and a good team. They are having Kulturvan music band, and it's a great band. They make really very beautiful music, very professional, and they teach all of them. They teach children different kind of instruments. People say also to us, it's a place to get back to yourself and have some time to think. And it's like not in Amuda. I hear from a lot of people coming to Kotelvan, they say when we are entering the place, we feel like we are in a place, it's not in the city, it's not in the Middle East, it's kind of having a plane to somewhere very far away. By hearing these words, it feels like we did really right. We made the right choice, and we did something which people need.
It's beautiful. It's a wonderful image.
Yeah.
If I think of the Art27 network, within the network are lots of organizations and people that are working with people that have arrived in Europe as refugees, people that have arrived seeking asylum, some from Syria. But lots of our network are working with people who are not where they are born, they're not in their homeland, they've arrived somewhere else. The idea of alternative and the experience people have been through and the effective experience that you've described, I'm sure is still true for lots of the young people who arrive in Europe or in other countries. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, because all the things you're describing, all the needs, all of the benefits of art, the benefits of providing alternatives, seem like they would still be true for any young people arriving anywhere, any young people who have been through war, who have been through persecution. Do you have any thoughts of that or experience working with young people away from Syria or young people who in Europe who have arrived as refugees?
Yes, of course. We know a lot of people which they fled the country to Europe or to anywhere else where it's more safe. And I think there is a difference between us. People, they left 25 years ago in a situation where there were no war. But our soul and our body and our mind was really in need for more freedom, which the country couldn't give us. And there's people which they have been in the war in Syria. I'm not sure what's the experience of those people, but I can imagine that for us was more, we left the country and we wanted to build a kind of a new life here. And for me, it was a kind of also, I didn't want to think about Amuda and Syria for a few years when I came to Europe, and Gernas Haj also the same, because we are really very grateful for the chances we get here. The contrast is so big between being in a place where you want to express yourself and there's no space to do anything, and being in a country or in a space like Amsterdam, and you could go you could do anything and be yourself, and it's all in respect, and you are accepted as you are. I think the people they are here now, they have maybe kind of the same experience, but the needs are different, because they experienced a lack of food, a lack of education, a lack of they experienced the war. We didn't express that war in the same way they had. We experienced talking about myself, and of course it's not for everybody. Everyone has his own experience. But when I came here, my most need was how I could build myself and develop myself and my potential in a way without any restrictions, without being a Kurd in a country which you are not allowed to be a Kurd and speak your own language. And that was the difference. And I just hear from some people I know, they fled after the war. They say, oh, we are not thinking about that. We are thinking how to build a good life, like making a career, or I think there's a difference.
I have just a couple of more questions, Alaa, that are in my mind. Kotelvan is still a very young organization, I think. It began last year. Maybe have you been open for a year now?
Yeah, we actually didn't have an opening yet. We're still talking about when we are going to open Kulturvan, but it opened by itself. I mean, right. The place was ready and everyone just coming and asking, what's this? And we said, you are welcome, come and have a drink or go to the library and look.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have really a time to make an official opening. Which is very fine, and now we are saying it's already opened. We are doing everything, so we don't need that all formal things
ribbon
to get
cutting.
started.
Yeah.
No, we are not the kind of people like that. So actually,
but in those early days, what's your experience of? Did people come in the doors very easily? Or have you been through a gradual process of welcoming and building trust? And how was the response initially from people? Were people very open to walking in and engaging with this new space? Or is this kind of this long-term trust building still an ongoing process for you?
I think this is a very, very beautiful question. It was very important that we had a life, and we still have families in Amudha. So we never cut all the connections with Syria, even we lived in Amudha, and in Syria too. When we left the country, we had always a kind of some important feelings, memories, friends, which they are there. And when we came back and decided to do something for the place and for the people there, they had a kind of reference. They knew us. They knew my father, they knew father of Gernas, the family. So we are kind of, and it's a small city, everyone knows each other. It's kind of a village, and you know how it's going in small places. Like, oh, I know Alaa is the daughter of, and her uncle is that.
Right.
Her uncle has been in a cinema at 1960, and Gernas, the father, is that, and his brother is. So it was a kind of familiar. We didn't need any effort to get trust of people, but there was something else, and that is the concept was new. It was very hard for us to convince people that making the step to change the focus from war to art, it was so hard to let people understand that. And really, we didn't have anyone who just told us a good idea. Everyone said, are you crazy? People are fleeing the country to European, and you are coming back. Are you crazy? You will never used to this situation. You are used of the luxury of Europe, a good life, good concert, pretty houses, and a good car. So how you are coming back to this place and you want to do something for this place? Except that, do you think that people are waiting for that? Because people need food. That's what the organization, the NGOs in the Nest are doing, Nest Northeast Syrian. There is no attention for culture, really, and that's so bad. It affected us so much that they don't see how important art is for the long term, or also for now, even for now. They just think, okay, if we give food for people, then they are, and they will still alive. But I do really believe that people can die because lack of spiritual experiences or connections and artistic connections, and because art make us soft, let us have some feelings for other people, see beauty, be in harmony. I mean, just real people make art. And sometimes I say fake people may make war and real people make art. The change of this idea, like all the funding are going to food, to basic needs, which I understand very well. But there is no attention for art in the area. Yeah. And we believe that if you really want to build a sustainable future for Syria without war and building a generation and have peace in a place, you should invest in cultural, in building free-minded people, and giving them connection to artistic things, letting them create, giving them a space to be themselves. Only by that you can have a sustainable peace in Syria, and not just by giving them some food for a short term to keep alive. This is really what we believe in.
Thank you, Alaa. Thank you. Is there anything people listening to this can do to support your work?
I hate saying giving money, because actually we built Kulturvan with our own saved money. We worked hardly in Europe, and we brought everything we had and we put it in that building and in the things we could do. And we are giving all our time, our love, and our network and our friends and everything we have to that place, because we believe in it. So when we started that, we didn't expect anybody helping us. And it's a different way to build things. When you build them from kind of your inner beliefs, because you want it and you believe it, so you give everything you need, and you will see which people will join you or believe in you. But if you're asking about what we will need, there are, of course, some needs of the place. We build the place, the place should develop more. We have some plans we want to realize, and it need money, of course, because this is the reality. We need to get in touch with people abroad the city, because the transportation of people from the villages to Amuda is a big thing. People know what Kulturvan is but can't go, and we really want to go to them. So one of our dreams is to make a kind of mobile Kulturvan, like building a bus.
Kulturvan van.
Yeah, Kotelvan Band. Let's say people who want to support us to make a Kulturvan Band. We made a plan, but we didn't have a good name for it. Kulturvan Band. Yeah, I mean, going to the people with the same things we have in the building, going to them, to the villages, or maybe to the camps, and showing them that. Mm-hmm. And something else is very important, because we are for exchange of cultural experiences. We will really love to have bands or teachers or people giving lectures from abroad, having them in Kulturvan and letting them being in contact with people, because just by being there, you will understand how important it is and how a great human experience you will have, because it's really worth to support people and to give what you can give to a new generation. Yeah. You are building peace for the long term. You are building.
Yeah. I believe there is also an instrument drive taking place. Is there any way that our listeners can support you with instruments?
Yes, of course. They can look if they have an instrument they don't use, a music instrument, whatever it is, because we will use it for the children. At this moment, they get lessons, but they don't have instruments to practice on it. And that's really very bad for developing their their music experiences. So please, if you have an instrument and you don't need it, just let us know, and we will collect them and send them to the children of Amuda.
And can people follow you? I know you have a Facebook page. Is there other ways people can follow your work and kind of join your community?
We have a Facebook page, and we have a website which is developing. They can contact us anytime they need, through a message on Facebook, or just contact us personally. I like to have personal contacts, and they can send an email or find me on Facebook or find Gernas on Facebook. Actually, we'll be very happy to share experiences, and we'll be very happy to get people from abroad to Kulturvan. We have a room also in Kulturvan for our guests.
Wow.
So we hope that people want to give a lecture or give a course, media course or music course, or anything they can offer to help building society in peace and society in development is so much welcome.
Let's see the response.
Yes.
The call is out there. Thanks very much. This has been fascinating. I've really very much enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
ReSounding is brought to you by the Art27 Network, a network of like-minded initiatives using art and culture to respond to the ongoing crisis of displacement of human beings in Europe and around the world. To find out more and to join our growing network, you can visit our website, art27.art, or follow us on Facebook at Art27. This podcast was produced and edited by Ed Holland. The theme tune was written by Matteo Gillespie in collaboration with Synca. Thank you for listening.